You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius, what if I told you that the calmest man in the room isn't calm because life is easy, but because he's trained himself to stay unshaken when everything goes wrong? Think about it, the pressure at work, disrespect from people, unexpected losses, moments where most men snap, react, or spiral. What if, instead of reacting emotionally, you could pause, assess, and respond with absolute control? That's the difference Stoicism makes. A Stoic man doesn't suppress emotions, he masters them. He doesn't explode under pressure, he calculates. While others panic, complain, or self-destruct, he stays grounded, focused, and dangerous in his discipline. And the truth is, calmness under pressure isn't a personality trait. It's a set of rules that can be learned, practiced, and embodied by any man willing to do the inner work. In this video, I'll break down 8 rules every Stoic man follows to remain unbreakable in chaos. Rules that help you keep your dignity, your clarity, and your power when life tests you the hardest. Watch this video till the very end because the final rule ties everything together. And if you apply it consistently, you'll notice something powerful. Situations that once controlled you won't anymore. Number 1, control your response. Not the event, control your response, not the event. That single idea sounds simple, almost obvious, until pressure hits and your body reacts before your mind gets a vote. This rule sits at the heart of Stoicism because it's the difference between living deliberately and living on autopilot. You don't control what happens. You never did. What you control is the space between the trigger and your reply, and that space is where calm is forged. When you internalize this, pressure stops feeling like an enemy and starts feeling like raw material. Something you can shape, something you can use. The Stoics were ruthless about this distinction. Epictetus put it plainly. It's not things that disturb us but our judgments about things. Read that again, slowly. The event itself is neutral. It has no emotional charge until you plug your interpretation into it. You feel anger, anxiety, panic, or frustration because of the story you tell yourself in that instant. The Stoic man trains himself to catch that story mid-sentence. He doesn't deny emotion and he doesn't suppress it either. He observes it. He creates a pause. And in that pause, he chooses who he's going to be next. You need to understand this deeply. Calm is not the absence of chaos. Calm is composure inside chaos. If you're waiting for life to slow down before you stay centered, you'll be waiting forever. Pressure is part of the deal. The question is whether you let it drag you around by the neck or whether you stand still while it passes through you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Not comfort, strength. Strength is quieter. Strong men don't flinch at every stimulus. They respond with intention. When something goes wrong, your first reaction is usually physical. Tight jaw, faster breath, heat in the chest. That's not weakness. That's biology. What matters is what you do next. Do you immediately act from that sensation, or do you step back and say, "This is just a feeling passing through"? The Stoic path isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming ungovernable by impulse. You don't let the moment decide your character for you. You decide. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is required of me right now?" That question pulls you out of victimhood and into responsibility. Responsibility is grounding. It stabilizes you. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Pressure multiplies when you project forward, replay backward, and dramatize what hasn't even happened yet. Control your response means anchoring yourself in the present second, not the next 10 minutes, not tomorrow, this breath, this thought, this decision. You train this the same way you train your body, through repetition under resistance. Start small. When irritation shows up, don't rush to fix it or express it. Name it silently, that's it. This is irritation. Naming creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice creates calm. Then ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, you release it, not with force, with acceptance. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's refusing to waste energy fighting reality. Another practice is deliberate delay. When the urge to react appears, count 3 slow breaths before you do anything. Inhale through the nose, long and steady. Exhale even slower. You're telling your nervous system that you're safe, that you're in charge. That short delay breaks the chain between stimulus and reaction. Over time, that pause becomes automatic. You stop snapping. You stop spiraling. People start noticing that you don't rush your words, that you don't get pulled into noise. Respect follows calm the way shadows follow light. You should also rehearse this rule before pressure arrives. The Stoics called this premeditation. Not worry, preparation. Remind yourself daily that obstacles, delays, criticism, and uncertainty are part of life, not exceptions. When they show up, you're not surprised, you're ready. Marcus Aurelius told himself, "Today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence." Not to become bitter, but to remain steady. When you expect friction, it loses its power to knock you off balance. A simple daily exercise. Each morning, write one sentence. Today, I will focus on my responses. That's it. During the day, whenever tension arises, return to that sentence. In the evening, reflect briefly. Where did you react automatically? Where did you choose deliberately? No self-attack, just observation. Progress here is quiet and cumulative. Control your response also means choosing your inner dialogue carefully. The way you speak to yourself under pressure determines whether you escalate or stabilize. Replace exaggerated language with grounded statements. Not "this is unbearable," but "this is uncomfortable and I can handle discomfort." Words matter. They steer your nervous system. They either pour fuel on the fire or slowly lower the flame. Over time, this rule changes how you move through the world. You stop being predictable. You stop being reactive. You become someone whose presence lowers the temperature of a room instead of raising it. That's rare. That's powerful. And it's built one response at a time. Pressure will come. That's guaranteed. The Stoic man doesn't waste energy wishing otherwise. He tightens his grip on the only thing that's ever been his response. When you master that, calm stops being something you chase. It becomes who you are. Number 2, pause before speaking or acting. When you train yourself to pause before speaking or acting, you're not slowing your life down, you're taking control of it. That pause, even when it lasts only a heartbeat, is where calm lives. It's where strength hides. Most people rush straight from feeling to reaction, as if urgency itself were a virtue. You don't have to play that game. The Stoic man understands that pressure doesn't demand speed, it demands clarity. And clarity only shows up when you give it space. When something pushes your buttons, when tension rises in your chest and words rush to the edge of your mouth, the pause becomes your quiet rebellion. You decide not to be dragged. You decide to stand still internally, even if the world is loud. This isn't about silence for the sake of silence. It's about choosing your response instead of letting your impulses choose for you. The Stoics believe that between what happens and how you respond, there is always a gap. That gap is yours. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. That power shows itself most clearly when you pause, when you don't immediately defend, explain, lash out, or rush to fix. When you give yourself a moment to breathe, to notice what's actually happening inside you. Not the story your mind is telling, but the raw sensation, heat, tightness, urgency. Let it be there, you don't need to fight it. The pause isn't resistance, it's observation. You'll notice something interesting when you start practicing this. Most urges are loud but short-lived. They feel urgent, but they fade quickly if you don't obey them. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca warned that anger, once unleashed, carries you further than you intended. Pausing cuts that chain before it pulls you away. You're not suppressing yourself, you're training discernment. You're asking quietly and firmly, is this worth my energy? That question alone can change the entire direction of a moment. When pressure hits, your nervous system wants to act fast. That's natural, but you're not here to be ruled by reflexes. You're here to lead yourself. The pause is how leadership starts internally. It's the difference between reacting from habit and responding from principle. Epictetus reminded his students that it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Pausing gives you just enough distance to see those judgments forming. You catch them mid-sentence. You see the exaggeration, the assumption, the emotional shortcut. And once you see it, you're no longer trapped by it. To make this real, you need to turn the pause into a habit, not a concept. Start small. Practice pausing even when the stakes feel low. Before replying, before deciding, before moving, count a slow breath. Feel your feet. Relax your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. These tiny physical cues signal to your mind that you're not under attack, even when pressure is present. Over time, your body learns that calm is an option. You're rewiring yourself, one moment at a time. One powerful exercise is what the Stoics called the discipline of assent. When a thought appears, especially a charged one, don't accept it immediately. Treat it like a visitor knocking at the door. You don't have to let everyone in. Pause and say to yourself, this is just an impression. Not truth, not a command, just an impression. Then decide whether it deserves your agreement. This practice alone can save you from countless unnecessary reactions. It trains you to separate observation from interpretation, which is the foundation of emotional stability. Another practice is intentional delay. When you feel the urge to act, tell yourself you'll decide in 10 breaths. Not later in the day, not tomorrow, just 10 slow breaths. This creates friction, and friction creates freedom. In those breaths, you often realize that what felt urgent isn't essential. What felt personal isn't permanent. The pause doesn't weaken your position, it strengthens it. You act with precision instead of force. You might worry that pausing makes you passive. It doesn't. It makes you deliberate. There's a difference. The Stoic man is not inactive, he is measured. He knows that speed without direction is just noise. Calm under pressure isn't about having no emotions, it's about not being owned by them. When you pause, you're not denying what you feel. You're choosing how much authority it gets. That's real power. There's also a deeper layer here. Pausing is an act of self-respect. It says, I don't need to prove myself instantly. It says my worth isn't measured by how quickly I react. In a world addicted to immediacy, restraint becomes rare, and rare qualities attract respect. Not because you demand it, but because your presence feels grounded. People sense when you're not easily shaken. That steadiness starts with the pause. You can strengthen this habit with daily reflection. At the end of the day, ask yourself simple questions. Where did I pause today? Where did I rush? What did each cost me internally? The Stoics believed reflection was essential for progress. Not to judge yourself, but to sharpen awareness. Every moment you notice is a moment you reclaim. Over time, you'll see patterns, triggers, old reflexes, and with awareness, you gain choice. Remember, the pause isn't empty time, it's filled with awareness, with choice, with restraint. It's where wisdom shows up before words do. When pressure comes, and it will, you don't need to escape it. You just need to stand still inside it. Breathe, observe, decide. That's the Stoic way. And every time you pause before speaking or acting, you're not just staying calm under pressure. You're training yourself to become unshakable. Number 3, separate facts from assumptions when pressure shows up. The first thing it attacks is your perception. Not your strength, not your intelligence, your perception. That's why one of the most quietly powerful rules a Stoic man lives by is this: you separate facts from assumptions before you let your mind react. This sounds simple, almost boring, until you realize how rarely it's done. Most tension doesn't come from what is happening. It comes from the story you instantly attach to it. The mind rushes ahead, fills in blanks, invents motives, predicts outcomes, and suddenly you're not responding to reality anymore. You're fighting a fantasy of your own creation. Stoicism teaches you to slow that process down, to pause, to ask, what do I actually know and what am I just assuming? That single question can lower your pulse faster than any breathing trick because it restores control where panic usually takes over. You don't stay calm under pressure by suppressing emotion. You stay calm by refusing to lie to yourself. Marcus Aurelius warned that people suffer not from events but from their judgments about events. Read that again. The judgment is the trigger. The assumption is the fuel. Facts are neutral. They don't insult you, threaten you, or humiliate you. They simply exist. Assumptions, on the other hand, are loud. They feel urgent. They demand immediate emotional payment. And if you don't learn to separate the two, pressure will always feel heavier than it needs to be. You don't need to become cold or detached. You need to become precise. Precision is calm. Precision is power. Under stress, your mind wants shortcuts. It wants to decide quickly so it can feel safe again. That's where assumptions sneak in disguised as certainty. You tell yourself you already know what something means. You convince yourself you see the full picture, but Stoicism asks you to interrupt that reflex. Epictetus put it bluntly: it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Opinions are optional, facts are not. When you confuse the two, you give your peace away without even realizing it. When you separate them, you take it back. Here's the shift you need to make. Facts are observable, measurable, and present. Assumptions are imagined, predicted, and emotional. Facts don't need defending. Assumptions always do. Under pressure, your job is not to solve everything at once. Your job is to strip the situation down to what is undeniably true and nothing more. This creates mental space. Space creates calm. Calm allows intelligent action. That's the chain. Break it at the first link and everything downstream collapses. A Stoic man trains himself to notice when his inner language drifts from "this is happening" to "this must mean." That word "mean" is where trouble begins. Meaning is interpretation. Interpretation is where ego, fear, and impatience love to hide. Seneca warned about this exact trap when he wrote that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. Imagination isn't the enemy. Unexamined imagination is. Pressure amplifies whatever you feed it. Feed it assumptions and it grows teeth. Feed it facts and it becomes manageable. This is not about being passive or naive. It's about refusing to react to illusions. When you act on assumptions, you're shadowboxing, you waste energy. You exhaust yourself emotionally. And worst of all, you lose trust in your own judgment. When you act on facts, even difficult ones, your nervous system settles because it knows you're grounded in something real. Calm isn't the absence of chaos. It's the presence of clarity. You need to practice this deliberately, not just admire it as an idea. Start by slowing your internal dialogue. When pressure hits, don't ask, "What should I do?" Ask, "What do I know for certain right now?" Keep that list brutally short. If it can't be directly observed or verified, it doesn't belong there. This isn't denial. This is discipline. The Stoics believed discipline of thought was the highest form of strength because it governs everything else. Another powerful habit is learning to label assumptions as assumptions, not truths. Say it clearly in your mind. "This is a story I'm telling myself." That single sentence creates distance between you and the emotion trying to hijack you. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, reminding himself to strip things bare and see them as they are. When you remove the narrative coding, situations lose much of their emotional charge. They stop feeling personal. And when something stops feeling personal, it stops controlling you. Here's a simple but demanding exercise. Several times a day, pause and mentally divide your thoughts into two columns: what is observed and what is inferred. Don't judge either. Just separate them. This trains your awareness to catch assumptions earlier before they harden into stress. Over time, you'll notice how often your tension comes from the inferred side, not the observed one. That awareness alone begins to change your baseline state. Another exercise is negative restraint. When your mind wants to jump to conclusions, you deliberately refuse to add meaning. You stay with the raw data. You don't decorate it. You don't explain it. You don't dramatize it. This feels uncomfortable at first because the ego wants closure. But Stoicism teaches you that premature closure is dangerous. Calm comes from patience with uncertainty. Strength comes from staying present without inventing threats. You should also train verbal discipline. The way you speak to yourself shapes how you feel. Replace absolute language with precise language. Not "this is bad," but "this is challenging." Not "this always happens," but "this is happening now." Seneca believed clarity of language was clarity of mind. Every exaggerated word you use internally adds weight to the pressure you feel. Every accurate word removes some of it. This rule, separating facts from assumptions, is not about being emotionless. It's about being unshakable. Pressure will always exist. What changes is how much authority you give it over your inner state. When you stop confusing imagination with reality, you stop panicking about things that haven't actually happened. You stop rehearsing suffering in advance, and you start conserving energy for what actually matters. The calm you're after isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on everything going smoothly. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you won't betray your own clarity. That's Stoic calm. Earned, trained, and grounded. So the next time pressure rises, don't rush to react. Don't rush to explain. Separate what is from what you're assuming. Stand there for a moment. Breathe. Let the fog clear. Action will come. But calm always comes first when truth leads the way. Number 4, focus only on what's in your control when pressure hits. Your first instinct is usually to reach outward. You want to fix everything at once. You want to control the outcome, the timing, the reactions of other people, the chaos in front of you. But Stoicism asks you to do the opposite. It asks you to pull your attention inward and narrow it down to one brutal, liberating question. What is actually in your control right now? Not what you wish you could control. Not what should be different, just what is yours, your thoughts, your judgments, your actions. That's it. Everything else is noise. And once you truly accept that, calm stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you practice. Epictetus said it plainly. Some things are up to us and some things are not. You've probably read that line before, but reading it isn't the same as living it. Under pressure, the mind wants to argue with reality. It wants to replay, predict, and rehearse outcomes that haven't happened yet. That's where anxiety grows. The Stoic move is to cut that loop short. You remind yourself again and again that your power doesn't live in outcomes. It lives in response. You don't control how fast things move, but you control whether you panic or stay steady. You don't control how others behave, but you control whether you react with discipline or desperation. This isn't passive. It's precise. It's choosing to place your energy only where it can actually do something. Calm under pressure doesn't come from numbing yourself or pretending you don't care. It comes from caring correctly. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Strength, not comfort. Strength is staying anchored when everything around you is unstable. And you do that by constantly sorting your thoughts. Is this thought about something I can act on right now, or is it about something I can't touch? If it's the second one, you let it pass without feeding it. Not by force, by clarity. You don't wrestle with what's out of your control. You step aside from it. Pressure often feels overwhelming because your attention is scattered. You're mentally juggling 10 different worries, most of which don't belong to you. The Stoic discipline is to drop what isn't yours to carry. Over and over, this takes repetition. It's a habit, not a switch. Every time you notice your mind spiraling, you gently bring it back to action. What can you do now? One thing, one deliberate step. Even something small. Action grounds you. Worry dissolves when it isn't entertained. Seneca put it sharply, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. When you stop investing in imagined outcomes, pressure loses its grip. There's also a quiet confidence that grows when you live this way. You stop needing the world to cooperate for you to stay composed. You don't wait for reassurance. You don't demand certainty. You trust your ability to meet whatever comes with steadiness and self-command. That's real power. And it shows. People can sense when you're not internally begging the situation to go your way. You move differently. You speak more deliberately. You pause before reacting. That pause is where calm lives. To make this practical, start training your attention daily, not just when things get intense. At least once a day, pause and ask yourself, what's in my control here? Then act only on that. Write it down if you need to. Thoughts, effort, behavior. Let everything else sit outside the circle. Another simple exercise is to mentally label your worries. When a thought appears, tag it as mine or not mine. If it's not yours, don't argue with it. Let it drift away. This isn't avoidance, it's discipline. You're teaching your mind where it's allowed to spend energy. You can also practice negative space. When something stressful happens, resist the urge to immediately explain it, justify it, or emotionally react to it. Do nothing for a moment. Breathe. Observe your internal response without judging it. Marcus Aurelius advised, If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. That estimate can be changed, but only if you slow down enough to notice it forming. Silence, even internal silence, is a powerful tool. Another habit worth building is pre-commitment. Decide in advance how you want to behave under pressure. Not the exact outcome, just the manner: calm, direct, controlled. When the moment comes, you don't improvise emotionally. You execute character. This aligns with Epictetus' reminder that events don't hurt you, your judgments do. So you refine your judgments ahead of time. You choose who you will be before the pressure arrives. The deeper you go into this practice, the more you realize that calm isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on things going smoothly. It actually grows stronger in difficulty. Pressure becomes training. Every challenge is another chance to prove to yourself that you don't need control over everything to remain centered. You only need control over yourself. That realization strips fear of its authority. This doesn't mean you never feel tension. You do, you just don't let it drive. You feel it, acknowledge it, and return to what's yours to handle, again and again. Over time, this becomes instinctive. Your mind stops flailing outward and starts settling inward. That's when people start saying you're calm under pressure. But what they're really seeing is discipline. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, don't ask how to escape the pressure. Ask how to stand correctly inside it. Focus on what's in your control. Release the rest without resentment. Act with intention. Judge less. Respond more. This is the Stoic way. Quiet, firm, unshaken, and entirely within your power. Number 5, detach ego from outcomes. Detaching your ego from outcomes sounds simple on the surface, but if you're honest with yourself, you know how deep this runs. Your ego wants credit, it wants applause. It wants certainty, control, and a guarantee that if you put in effort, you'll be rewarded in the exact way you imagined. And when that reward does arrive, the ego tightens its grip. Frustration rises. Anger sneaks in. Pressure starts to feel personal. This is where Stoicism steps in and quietly asks you to do something radical. Loosen that grip. Not because outcomes don't matter, but because tying your inner state to them is a losing game. As Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That line stings because the ego hates being unseen, unpraised, or misunderstood. But calm under pressure begins the moment you stop asking outcomes to validate you. You don't control results. You never did. What you control is your intention, your effort, your discipline, and your response. That's it. Everything else lives outside your authority, no matter how badly the ego wants to claim it. When pressure hits, it's usually because you've attached your sense of worth to how something turns out. Success feels like survival. Failure feels like a threat. The Stoic move is to cut that emotional wire. You still act. You still care, but you no longer demand that the universe cooperate with your expectations. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that again. Strength doesn't come from bending outcomes. It comes from releasing your need to be defined by them. Detaching ego doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means shifting where your pride lives. Instead of taking pride in being praised, you take pride in showing up fully. Instead of craving recognition, you anchor yourself in integrity. Instead of obsessing over whether things work out, you focus on whether you acted according to your values. This is how pressure loses its edge. Pressure feeds on attachment. When the ego says, "This must work or I'm nothing," tension skyrockets. When you respond with, "I'll do my part and I'll accept whatever follows," your nervous system settles. Calm returns. You stop negotiating with fear. The ego wants a story where you win visibly, immediately, and undeniably. Stoicism asks you to play a longer, quieter game. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That suffering usually comes from mental rehearsals of outcomes you can't control. You picture failure, you picture judgment, you picture loss, and your body reacts as if it's already happening. Detaching ego means stepping out of those mental movies. You bring your attention back to the present task. One breath, one action, one decision done well. That's it. Nothing else deserves your emotional energy. Here's where this becomes practical. Start catching the subtle ways your ego sneaks in. Notice the internal demand for approval. Notice the tightness when results are uncertain. Notice how quickly your mood rises or falls based on feedback you can't control. Awareness is the first discipline. You can't detach from what you don't see. When you notice ego attachment, don't fight it, don't shame it, just label it. This is my ego wanting certainty. That small pause creates space. Space creates choice. Another powerful shift is redefining what winning means. For a Stoic man, winning isn't getting the outcome you want. Winning is acting with clarity, restraint, and courage regardless of the outcome. When you internalize that, pressure has nothing to grab onto. You stop asking, "What if this goes wrong?" and start asking, "What does excellence look like right now?" That question grounds you. It brings you back into your body, your breath, your next move. Calm isn't something you force. It's something that emerges when your attention stops wandering into imaginary futures. There's a daily mental exercise the Stoics use that fits perfectly here. Before you act, remind yourself, "This effort is mine, the result is not." Say it slowly, feel it, let it sink in. You're not lowering your standards, you're clarifying your responsibility. This single sentence can drain pressure from almost any situation. It keeps you honest and steady. You act fully, but you don't cling. Another practice is voluntary humility. The ego thrives on being seen as important, so you deliberately practice being okay with not being noticed. You do the work without announcing it. You improve without broadcasting it. You let silence do some of the talking. This trains your nervous system to stop equating visibility with value. Over time, you'll notice something strange. The less you chase validation, the calmer you become. The calmer you become, the more grounded your presence feels. People sense that. Respect follows naturally without being demanded. Detaching ego from outcomes also means accepting discomfort without dramatizing it. Pressure often feels unbearable because the ego interprets discomfort as danger. Stoicism teaches you to sit with unease without adding a story to it. You don't say, "This shouldn't be happening." You say, "This is happening and I'm still here." That quiet acceptance is powerful. It keeps your mind clear when others panic. It allows you to respond instead of react. One more exercise: at the end of each day, review your actions, not your results. Ask yourself 3 questions. Did I act according to my principles? Did I give honest effort? Did I maintain self-control when things were uncertain? Answer truthfully. Then let the day go. No replaying outcomes. No self-punishment. This trains your mind to seek approval internally rather than externally. Over time, pressure loses its emotional charge because your sense of worth is no longer outsourced. Detaching ego is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming free. free from emotional whiplash, free from the need to control everything, free from the exhausting habit of tying your peace to variables you can't command. When you live this way, calm under pressure stops being a technique and becomes your default state. You move steadily, you speak clearly, you act decisively. And when outcomes arrive, good or bad, you meet them with the same grounded presence. That's Stoic strength. Quiet, unshaken, built from the inside out. Number 6, use reason over emotion when pressure shows up, and it always does. The first battle is never outside you. It's internal. It's the instant surge of heat in your chest, the tightening of your jaw, the restless urge to react right now. This is where most men lose control, not because they're weak, but because they confuse emotion with truth. Stoicism asks you to do something radically different. Pause, step back, and let reason take the lead. Not to kill emotion, not to deny it, but to stop letting it drive. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Calm under pressure isn't a personality trait you're born with. It's a discipline you build choice by choice, moment by moment. Using reason over emotion doesn't mean you become cold or robotic. It means you stop letting temporary feelings hijack permanent decisions. Emotion is fast, loud, and dramatic. Reason is quiet, patient, and exact. Emotion wants release. Reason wants results. When pressure hits, your emotions will always arrive first. That's biology. The Stoic rule is simple. Feelings get a seat in the room, but they never get the microphone. You acknowledge what you feel without obeying it. You observe the surge without becoming it. Epictetus put it bluntly. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. The pressure itself isn't the problem. The story you tell yourself about it is. Most men react because reacting feels like control. Raising your voice, rushing a decision, proving a point, these give a quick illusion of power. But reason plays a longer game. Reason asks better questions. What is actually within your control here? What part of this situation is neutral and what part is interpretation? What response would you respect yourself for tomorrow, not just right now? When you let reason step in, the chaos slows down, not instantly, not magically, but enough for you to choose instead of explode. Calm doesn't come from suppressing emotion, it comes from outgrowing its authority over you. Stoicism teaches that emotions are signals, not commands. Anger signals perceived injustice. Anxiety signals uncertainty. Fear signals attachment to an outcome. None of these are orders, they're information. When pressure mounts, your job is to translate, not react. Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Pressure is not an enemy, it's training. It's the weight that reveals whether your mind collapses or stays upright. Every time you choose reason over impulse, you're reinforcing a new default. You're teaching yourself that you don't need to rush, lash out, or retreat to be safe. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, "How do I feel about this?" and start asking, "What does this require of me?" Feelings are unstable. Requirements are clear. Pressure demands clarity, restraint, and direction. It demands that you slow the moment down when everything in you wants speed. Stoics believe that space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. You create that space deliberately. You breathe. You delay. You let the first emotional wave pass without acting on it. That alone will separate you from most men. To train this, start practicing intentional pauses. When tension rises, say nothing, internally or externally, for a full breath cycle. Inhale slowly. Exhale longer than you inhale. This isn't mystical, it's mechanical. You're signaling to your nervous system that you're not under attack. Once your body settles, your mind follows. Then apply reason. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is this within my control? Is my emotional reaction helping or harming me? What would a calm, disciplined version of me do next? Write these questions down and rehearse them daily so they surface automatically under stress. Another exercise, negative visualization, a classic Stoic tool. Briefly imagine the outcome you fear without drama, without exaggeration. Strip it down to facts. When you do this regularly, pressure loses its teeth. You stop reacting as if everything is catastrophic. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet busybody, ingrate, arrogant, deceitful." Not to become bitter, but to become prepared. Prepared men don't panic, they respond. You also need to audit your language. Emotion speaks in absolutes, always, never, ruined, impossible. Reason speaks in specifics. Catch yourself when your inner dialogue spirals. Replace emotional exaggeration with precise descriptions. This is uncomfortable at first because drama feels powerful, but precision is power. When you describe reality accurately, your options multiply. When you dramatize it, your options shrink. Make it a habit to delay expression. Not suppression, delay. You don't need to immediately speak every thought or defend every feeling. Silence gives reason time to organize itself. Calm men are not quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're choosing what's worth saying. Under pressure, fewer words usually mean more control. You don't rush to prove yourself. You don't rush to be understood. You trust that clarity beats urgency. Finally, commit to daily mental training. At the end of the day, review moments where emotion tried to take over, not with shame, with curiosity. Ask yourself where reason stepped in and where it didn't. This nightly reflection was a Stoic staple. Over time, patterns emerge. And once you see patterns, you can change them. This is how calm becomes your identity, not a performance. Using reason over emotion is not about winning every moment. It's about refusing to be owned by the moment. Pressure will always test you. The question is whether it exposes chaos or discipline. Each time you choose reason, you're building a reputation with yourself. One of steadiness, one of control, one of quiet strength. And that kind of calm, it's unshakable. Number 7, accept discomfort without complaint. Accepting discomfort without complaint isn't about turning yourself into stone or pretending things don't hurt. It's about choosing your response before discomfort chooses it for you. You already know that pressure, frustration, and unease are unavoidable. They arrive uninvited. They interrupt your plans. They test your patience. What separates the Stoic man from everyone else is not that he avoids discomfort, but that he meets it without dramatizing it, without narrating his suffering to the world, without letting it infect his mind. You don't need comfort to function. You need composure. And composure is built by willingly standing still when every impulse in you wants to react. You've probably noticed how quickly the mind starts bargaining the moment something feels unpleasant. Complaints rise automatically. A quiet resistance forms. This shouldn't be happening. It's not fair. I deserve better. Stoicism asks you to notice that reflex and stop feeding it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Read that slowly. Sit with it. The discomfort isn't the enemy. Your interpretation is. When you accept discomfort without complaint, you remove the extra layer of suffering created by resistance. You stop arguing with reality. And the moment you stop arguing with reality, your energy comes back to you. This is where calm under pressure is born, not from positive thinking, not from pretending everything is fine, but from a quiet agreement with life as it is in this moment. You don't tense up. You don't rush to escape. You do narrate your hardship internally. You simply say, "This is here now, and I am still in control of myself." Epictetus was blunt about this. Don't seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. That isn't passive, that's disciplined acceptance. You aren't surrendering your standards, you're surrendering your resistance. Complaint feels harmless, but it weakens you. Every time you complain, even silently, you reinforce the idea that discomfort is intolerable. You train yourself to flinch. Over time, this erodes your ability to stay steady. The Stoic man understands this, so he treats discomfort like weight on a barbell. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without discomfort, there is no resilience. You don't need to enjoy it. You just need to stop resenting it. There's something deeply powerful about being the person who doesn't announce their suffering. Not because you're suppressing emotions, but because you've stopped outsourcing your stability. Seneca wrote, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Most discomfort is multiplied by anticipation, complaint, and replay. When you drop those habits, the raw sensation becomes manageable, shorter, cleaner, less personal. You're no longer telling yourself a story about how bad this is or what it means about you. You're just present, and presence is calming. This rule requires daily practice, not occasional bravery. You train it in small moments when no one is watching. When something feels irritating, you pause instead of reacting. When your body wants relief, you stay with the sensation a little longer. When your mind starts complaining, you cut it off gently but firmly. Not with aggression, with clarity. You remind yourself, "I don't need to comment on this. I don't need to judge it. I can endure this quietly." Over time, this becomes your default state. Pressure stops feeling like an emergency. It becomes information. One simple exercise is to deliberately sit with mild discomfort without distraction. No mental escape. No internal commentary, just awareness. Notice how quickly the mind tries to label the experience as bad, then practice letting that label dissolve. Another exercise is silence. When discomfort appears, remove the urge to talk about it, even internally. Treat complaint like a habit you're breaking. You don't shame yourself for slipping, but you don't indulge it either. You redirect, again and again. You can also use Stoic reframing. Ask yourself, "Is this within my control?" If not, release the tension around it. If it is, act calmly without emotional noise. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength shows up most clearly under pressure. When others tighten, you loosen. When others rush, you slow down. When others complain, you become quieter. Accepting discomfort without complaint doesn't make you cold. It makes you grounded. It sharpens your judgment. It keeps your nervous system from spiraling. It allows you to respond instead of react. Over time, people feel this around you. They sense that you are not easily shaken. Not because life is easy for you, but because you've stopped demanding that it be easy in order for you to be calm. This rule is not about suffering in silence for the sake of ego. It's about conserving your mental energy for what actually matters. Complaining wastes attention, resistance wastes strength, acceptance frees both. You don't become passive, you become precise. Calm under pressure isn't something you turn on in emergencies. It's the result of how you treat discomfort every single day. So the next time discomfort appears, don't rush to escape it, don't explain it, don't dramatize it. Let it be there, breathe. Stand still internally. Remind yourself that this is training. This is where your calm is forged. The Stoic man doesn't need perfect conditions to remain composed. He carries composure with him, built quietly, moment by moment, through the discipline of accepting discomfort without complaint. Number 8, maintain inner discipline under chaos. Maintaining inner discipline under chaos isn't about becoming stiff, emotionless, or distant from life. It's about becoming so grounded inside yourself that no amount of noise outside can knock you off center. You already know this feeling exists. You've tasted it in brief moments when you paused instead of reacting, when you chose restraint over impulse, when you felt steady even though everything around you felt unstable. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress your humanity, it asks you to train it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's quiet. It's disciplined. And under pressure, it's the difference between being ruled by chaos and standing above it. Inner discipline starts with how you relate to your thoughts. Not by fighting them, not by trying to control every mental flicker, but by refusing to obey every thought that demands attention. Pressure exposes habits. If your mind is undisciplined, stress will yank it in every direction. If your mind is trained, stress becomes a signal rather than a threat. You slow down, you observe, you decide. Epictetus was blunt about this. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That line isn't philosophical decoration, it's a call to action. The moment pressure hits, your first job is to question the story your mind is rushing to tell you. Not later, right then. Ask yourself, is this a fact or is this my interpretation? That single pause is discipline in action. You build this discipline long before chaos shows up. You build it in ordinary moments, in the way you sit with discomfort without trying to escape it, in the way you finish what you start, in the way you resist the urge to constantly distract yourself. Discipline is not dramatic, it's repetitive, it's boring sometimes, and that's why it works. Seneca warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Read that again. Freedom doesn't come from controlling circumstances. It comes from self-command. Under pressure, the man without inner discipline feels trapped. The Stoic man feels tested but not cornered. When things speed up, your discipline must slow you down. Pressure loves urgency. It whispers that you must react now, decide now, speak now. Inner discipline teaches you to create space where none seems available. You breathe. You ground yourself in what is within your control, your words, your posture, your focus, your next deliberate action. Nothing else. Not outcomes. Not other people's reactions. Not imagined consequences, just the next right move. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. That's not passive acceptance, that's tactical focus. Chaos feeds on mental time travel. Discipline anchors you here. You also maintain inner discipline by guarding your inner dialogue. Under stress, many men turn brutal toward themselves. They criticize, insult, rush, threaten their own mind into compliance. Stoicism doesn't support that. Discipline isn't self-hatred dressed up as toughness. It's calm authority. You speak to yourself like a commander who trusts his soldier. Clear, direct, unemotional. When pressure rises, notice your internal tone. Is it frantic? Is it harsh? Then correct it. Replace it with steadiness. Say less internally, but say it with weight. This mirrors the external discipline Stoicism values: fewer words, more meaning. Practical training matters here. One simple exercise is voluntary discomfort, but done mentally, not theatrically. Sit with an urge and don't act on it, not to punish yourself, but to remind your nervous system who's in charge. Another exercise is negative visualization, a classic Stoic practice. Briefly imagine things going wrong, not to spiral, but to normalize uncertainty. When pressure arrives, it won't feel foreign. Seneca advised, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." The goal isn't fear, it's familiarity. Chaos loses strength when it stops being surprising. Inner discipline also means emotional regulation without repression. You don't deny anger, fear, or frustration. You acknowledge them, then decide what role they get to play. Most of the time, that role is small. Pressure doesn't require emotional silence, it requires emotional hierarchy. Reason leads, emotion follows. Epictetus put it simply: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Under stress, remind yourself who you are choosing to be in that moment, not who you feel like being. Discipline is identity-driven. Another practice: shorten the gap between awareness and correction. You will slip. You will feel your chest tighten, your thoughts race, your patience thin. That's not failure. The mistake is letting that state run unchecked. The disciplined mind catches itself faster each time. You notice sooner. You reset quicker. That's progress. Calm under pressure isn't a permanent state, it's a rapid recovery skill. You also protect your discipline by limiting mental clutter. Stoicism values simplicity for a reason. The more you consume mentally, the more fragile your focus becomes under strain. Ask yourself regularly, is this strengthening my mind or scattering it? Chaos exploits a crowded mind. Discipline thrives in clarity. Marcus Aurelius warned against letting the mind be overrun by 1,000 little distractions. Under pressure, what you've trained your attention to do will reveal itself. Finally, understand this: inner discipline is invisible, and that's why it's powerful. No one may notice when you choose restraint. No one may praise your calm. That's fine. Stoicism was never about applause, it's about sovereignty. When pressure hits and you remain steady, you feel it. You know it. That's enough. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it. You don't stop the chaos, you outlast it. So train your mind daily. Question your thoughts, slow your reactions, choose your inner voice carefully. Practice restraint in small moments. Anchor yourself in the present. Do this not because life will become easier, but because you will become stronger. Pressure doesn't break the disciplined man, it reveals him. Before you close this video, remember this: calm is not something you're born with, it's something you train. The Stoic man isn't unshaken because life is easy. He's unshaken because he's disciplined his mind to stand firm when everything else trembles. Pressure will always show up. Chaos will always knock. The difference is this: now you have rules to fall back on. Principles that keep you steady when emotions try to hijack your decisions. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, clarity over chaos, and discipline over impulse, you quietly level up. Don't try to master all 8 rules at once. Start with 1. Apply it the next time you feel provoked, rushed, or overwhelmed. That single moment of control will do more for your confidence than 100 empty wins. If this video helped you think differently under pressure, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with this channel, because we're building more than motivation here. We're building unshakable men. Stay calm, stay sharp, and remember, the man who controls himself can never be controlled by the world.